One. Special.
Yes,
AllBall TV live.
yes. We are in the building, man. Like I said, everybody, we are on YouTube. I'm on Instagram so y'all can see what we doing. But if you want to chime in, if you want to comment, we are on YouTube. The link is in my story on my YouTube page. Fabian, how you doing today?
Well, you know it's Fabian perspective. Expected, so accepted.
Yes.
And who we got to my right, of course?
Hey, man, we got the instigator, the aggravator, the panicker, whatever you want to call me. All ball is in the building. Get it.
And this is our first episode of the gambling spot.
Yes.
We've been talking about this for a minute.
For a long time, man.
We got a lot of degenerate friends, and we're just trying to help you out and educate you. And hopefully, we got a special guest in the building. I'm very excited about this. For the first episode of the gambling spot, I want to turn gambling to more into like an investment.
Right.
And we got a special guest here. I'm so excited because he takes things this seriously. He's a pro. He'll get into his life story of how he really started doing his thing and how he's here right now telling us what picks to make.
Yes, sir. Once again, we got Scott is in the building from Queens. He's a professional gambler, in my opinion. He's going to break a lot of things down to us. We're very thankful and grateful for him to be in the building. I'm very excited because I'm a gambler, man, Scott. I'm a blackjack guy, man. So you make it help me as well.
You catch Scott on SGPN, that's the Sports Gambling Podcast Network.
Yes.
You can also catch him on Winners and Whiners.
Yep.
Winners and Whiners.
Gotcha.
Scott Reichel, please, floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First things first. By the way, out of curiosity, is that an Alan Page jersey that you're rocking?
Nah, this is Chris Carter.
That's Carter. Okay, I couldn't see the other number on that. I couldn't tell if that was Page or not. But yeah, thanks for having me.
The NFL got to give up a check for that, Scott.
Sorry.
But so the point of the gambling spot is to show people, hey, you can gamble out there. That's great and all, but how do you get to the point where you got the cojones, as All Ball would say, to get on camera and tell people, hey, who's going to win, but I got money on it? What's your life story, Scott, in terms of with gambling, of course? You told me you were from Queens, first of all, which is already salute.
Yes.
What's your gambling? How did your gambling journey start from A to Z? How you got right here, right now, in front of AllBall TV?
Yeah, so I'm not going to spend that much time going into all of the details, but I started off being a big sports fan, long time, runs in the family. So all my uncles, cousins, everybody, all into sports. You know, sometimes different teams, but still, we might clash on that here and there. But I was watching sports all the time. And then it was 11th grade, and I realized, wait a second, you can bet on this stuff. You can actually make money. So I started betting on sports in the middle of high school, and I was not good at all. I followed sports all the time, and I figured, oh, this is going to be easy. I know all the teams. I know all the stuff. And I got destroyed for about the first year or two. And then I realized it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So I started to actually apply myself and trying to take the necessary steps to actually become a winning gambler over the course of years and years. And so far it's worked out since then. But you're going to hear some stories of people online telling you that it's easy and that they have the secret, they have the script or whatever you want to call it, and how they don't really lose that often. To tell you the truth is that it's a learning experience. It's not something that it's very easy. You got to apply yourself. And I think that was where most of my growth came as a handicapper, was that I was trying to treat every loss that I still had as a learning experience. I wasn't just automatically assuming that I did things right every time and it just didn't work out for me. My plan was to treat every loss as a learning experience, find out what I might be doing wrong so I don't make the same mistake twice. And that's kind of how I went about it. So I have been involved with actually being on camera, YouTube, and podcast stuff since college. So about 6 years, give or take. But once again, it wasn't an overnight process. It took time, but I took what knowledge I had of the sport, included some added research into it, started figuring out what angles to look for, etc. But the main thing I'd say is that I definitely learned over time. It's not as easy as you might think it is, and it does take work. So if you think you're going to take over the gambling space and immediately dominate, I got some bad news for you, because it's not going to happen. You're going to have to try, be patient, and eventually it's going to work itself out.
Right. Wow. Just 1 minute, Scott. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to know we are live on YouTube. AllBall TV on YouTube. We have Scott. We're talking gambling at the gambling spot. A lot of y'all go to the bookie, FanDuel. This is some great information for y'all. Please go to the YouTube page. The link is in my story. Now, Scott, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Can the average Joe make a living out of sports gambling, sports betting?
The answer is yes, you can. But
Okay.
to be fully honest, with the amount of time that I think it personally takes to try to get an edge, because we know that sports books aren't just handing out lines for no reason. Like, they know what they're doing. And I feel like a lot of people might try to rush into making bets, or if they think they can do it full time, I'm telling you, it is a full time commitment. So I feel like to answer your question, the answer is yes, you can. But if you're also working a 9 to 5, if you're doing some other jobs and you're going to be limited with your availability to actually do the research, it's not that easy to do it full time. So the answer is yes, but it's really a time devotion that some people don't have.
Got you. Got you.
I don't want to spend a couple more minutes with that because you said it takes a lot of time. What's the first thing that you do in the morning? Like, a lot of us, we just go jump on Instagram and we want to look at some things. I would think if you're taking this on for full time, you're on there looking for, like you said, the edge. What is the edge? What website do you go to first? What application do you go to first? What information are you looking for at the top of the morning?
By the way, when you say top of the morning, most of my research I'm doing at like 2, 3 a.m. Like, I'm trying to beat the early lines. Like, I'm usually up late, so that's kind of how I go. But the way that you can go about it, every now and then you're going to see some line movement on games that moves pretty substantially, where sharp bettors or even just a lot of overall money comes in, and you'll see a line move. You know, whether it's a player prop, whether it's an actual betting line, team goes from being a 6.5-point favorite to an 8.5-point favorite, and you wish you got in, and now you're wondering if it's too late to get in or not. Usually most of my research, at least early in my per day, I'd say, is in the early hours. I'm usually up late. I always have been. So 2, 3 in the morning, I'm going through injury reports. I'm going through stats. I'm trying to dive deep, trying to get the earliest line available, because a lot of people, once again, will think that Vegas, whoever's pricing the lines on these sports books, are kind of infallible and that they're perfect and they know exactly what they're doing. That's not always true, because once again, you see a lot of line movement on a lot of games every single day. And if you can even get yourself an extra half point, extra full point of value, you get in at 4.5 on a team and the line closes at 6.5. It might not land 5 or 6, but you drastically increase your chances of winning based on where the line moves. So most of my process early on, injury reports, stats. I also use Outlier as an actual app that definitely helps me search up like percentages, how many times a certain player has had, for example, 20 points in the last 10 games, the last 20 games. And I feel like trying to back players that have consistently gone over certain props is a good way to go about it. One piece of advice I will give out, though, a lot of people seem to think that regression or positive regression is a thing that happens where a certain team, let's just say the Warriors, let's actually use a basketball team here, and they've been underachieving so far this season. I'm being generous. They've been really bad, but they've been underachieving based on what we thought they would be. A lot of people are looking at their games going, well, they got to be better at some point. I'm going to bet them now because they have to improve. No, they don't. Like, they really don't. I feel like at some point you have to realize what you see is what you get with these teams. And people are saying, well, because they were so good in years past and because they still have Draymond and Curry and Clay, they're going to figure it out. I feel like it makes more sense to back teams in good form, fade teams in bad form, as simple as that sounds. Don't try to predict when a losing streak or a slump's going to end. Try to ride it until it loses and see how that goes.
Once again, everybody, we have Scott, man, sports bettor, gambler, a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight. Please, everybody, go to YouTube if you want to see what's going on. If you want to hear the conversations, if you want to chime in, comment, please, YouTube, AllBall TV on YouTube. The link is in my story. Quick question. When it comes to sports betting, is this something that you can go half-ass in, or you need to be all the way in to be serious about it and make some good money?
Well, to be serious about anything, you kind of have to go all in on it. Now, a lot of people can still, once again, be recreational gamblers. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are watching a game on TV and you just want to have some action on it, it's fine. But once again, do it responsibly. If you want to make a long-term profit, you have to treat it seriously. Now, I chose to do this. It's not something that's meant for everybody. But if you wanted to, once again, keep doing parlays, keep doing fun bets, you can do that. You're going to have fun doing it. But once again, keep in mind, you're not going to win most of the time. So you shouldn't be risking serious money involved. I don't have an issue if people want to bet on games just for the fun of it. And, you know, whatever happens, happens. It would be cooler if they won, but they're fine with not always winning. Then you can do it recreationally and you can half-ass it. But if you want to do it as a full-time thing, or if you want to make serious second job income from it, or even first job income from it, then you got to take it seriously.
Got you.
So good, and you're really stressing the parlay thing. Are there? And I want to spend a couple more minutes on this because I want to get back to that Warriors statement you made. This is lovely. What is it about the parlays that do increase the risk? Do you make parlays? Is that an opportunity that comes to you? Like, what is the normal kind of betting for someone like yourself at 2, 3 in the morning? Because
I think it comes. Yeah,
I'm sorry. This is clearly after you made you just watched the West Coast game. That's done, and now you're looking towards the next games. So, do you find a parlay at that time, or are you looking for the lines like you said earlier?
Well, parlays, for the most part, people will tell you are not a profitable investment because it's tough enough to win one bet. Now you got to win 2 or 3 or more just to make any money at all. So it increases the variance or just the overall likelihood of actually winning a certain bet. So most people will tell you parlays are not profitable. I do some parlays here and there. I'm not perfect, you know. Like I'm aware that parlays are fun and you can make some money if you find an edge in certain angles, but most often people will tell you to bet straight bets if you're trying to treat it fully professionally, because once again, it's a lot tougher to actually win any bets than having to win 3 or 4 to win anything, no matter how bumped up the parlay actually is. It's basically a lotto ticket at that point if you get like 10 picks involved. But I do some parlays here and there, usually pretty correlated, usually relatively safe. If I think 2 teams are going to win a game as a decent favorite, I might parlay them together if I don't want to lay a spread, like something like that. But for the most part, parlays I might throw in a little bit on, but it's all about bankroll management. Most of my bets are going to be on single straight plays. And if I want to have some fun and throw in, I don't know if you have a unit size of, let's just say $50, I'll throw $10 on occasion on a parlay just to have some fun with it. If I want to try to go for a massive swing, make a couple thousand, I know it's probably not going to win, but once again, that's why it's important to manage your bankroll responsibly, no matter how seriously you're taking this. That's my main piece of advice. If you don't have the money to be gambling, you shouldn't be gambling. It sounds simple enough, but there's a lot of people out there, especially with how legalized sports betting's become, who just can't stop, or they don't understand how much they should be betting. And I feel like that's the first place you should start before you place any bets. Get your bankroll in order, decide how much you want to be spending on gambling. And once again, my main piece of advice, rule number 1 for me in bankroll management, don't bet what you cannot afford to lose. Don't do it. Once again, it is still gambling. You might think you have an edge, and you might be able to bump up your chances of winning from, let's just say, 53% to 58%, which is a decent edge. That still means even with an edge, you're losing 42% of the time. So once again, don't bet what you can't afford to lose. That's my main piece of advice for bankroll.
Once again, we have Scott in the building, man, from Queens. Like I said, giving a lot of knowledge as far as sports betting. Now, how important is it to not have no type of emotions and feelings connected to a team or a player? Meaning, bet with your head, not with your heart. How many guys do you know make mistakes? Like me, I'm a diehard Knicks fan, and sometimes it's almost impossible to go against them because I'm a Knicks fan, and that messes up or just jams up your whole ticket. How important is it, once again, to not have no emotions or feelings attached to a certain team or player?
Well, since you're a Knicks fan, I'm not going to mention Julius Randle later in the show, so you're clear.
Please
but anyway,
with
regard to the actual emotions, it's important. You know, you got to try to stay level-headed. You're talking about teams trying to remove any bias is important. I'm actually wearing a Nets shirt at the moment, but I'm not a biased Nets fan. Like, I'll watch my team objectively. I'll tell you if I think this team is actually really good, if I think this team can improve. It's really important to try to remember, once again, if you are a true fan of the game or of the team that you're betting on, you really don't need to be betting on them if you just want the emotional attachment, because you already have it. Like, you're rooting for the Knicks to win every game because you're watching them play. So I feel like, once again, it's important to remove all bias. I treat it, once again, seriously, so I'm not going to blindly take the Nets in a game because I'm a Nets fan and it'd be really cool if they won. Like, no, that's where my fandom comes in. But it's important to separate those as two entities. You can still be a fan and bet on the games at the same time. It's just important to be responsible when you do that. Now, the more dangerous aspect of emotions is the chasing, which is another mistake that people can make. I'm assuming you guys know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, chasing is when you're down a decent amount of money and then you decide, you know what, I don't want to pay that, so I'm going to double down. And if I win this bet, then I break even and I don't know anything. But if I lose, then I owe a ton of money. So I feel like a lot of people do that. That's where emotions are more damaging than just blindly betting based on your own fandom. It's important once you get bankroll management. If you have a unit size, you stick with it. If your bet size is $50, stay with $50. If you're down 300 on the week, don't put 300 on the final play trying to break even. So emotions with teams is not ideal. Once again, we all can't help it though. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm thrilled they got Juan Soto. I'm excited. Maybe I'll take a World Series ticket. Maybe we'll see what happens. But we're all emotional about the teams we root for. It is what it is. But I do think it's more important, once again, to be, I'd say, even keel and just calm about your overall bankroll over anything. It's not great to bet on your teams because you're a fan of the team and you just can't visualize a world where they lose instead of using stats or data or unbiased opinions. But I go back to the chasing thing because I think that's one of the main mistakes people make, and that's a serious issue that problem gamblers have.
Now, the reason why I think I spoke to you offline, I mentioned this to you. The reason why I even contacted you was because you always say things I agree with, and I'm just starting my gambling journey. But the last thing that you said that made me go, I gotta DM this dude, was when you said the Boston Celtics, they kind of bums. Like Jason Tatum and them, they're not trustworthy. What made you think? How did you come to that conclusion from a gambling standpoint? Was that from a gambling standpoint or a personal standpoint? And explain that. How did you get to that conclusion? The same conclusion that I did without betting on them.
Well, when it comes to actually betting, I like to generally watch the teams that I'm betting on and against, or just overall games, because you can look at all the stats you want. I think the eye test is important. You can say that it's not. I think it is. But I'm looking at Boston time and time out. We saw it all last year. The main issue that I have with the Celtics, I'm not going to go as far as calling them bums, but I don't think that they're going to win the title. I think the main issue I run into is I don't trust this team in the fourth quarter of games. And I saw it all of last year. I don't think Mazzulla is a great coach. And I do think coaching matters. But when you're watching Tatum and Brown, now you throw in Drew Holiday. I know he won a ring. He's had a lot of bad playoff games in the past. Just throwing that out there. But you can go through it and just tell which teams have some sense of direction and some sense of, I'd say, overall poise in big moments. And yes, I know the Celtics made the NBA Finals a couple years ago. But it seems like in a lot of these games, when it's very, very tight, they don't know what they're doing offensively. It feels a lot of ISO-heavy offense, a lot of really bad step-back fadeaway jumpers, either from Brown, from Tatum, some last-second shot clock bail-me-out prayers. I've seen it too many times. And Mazzulla is mostly coaching for me. I think the players are definitely at fault for it because I have seen Tatum and Brown struggle in big moments. Mostly Brown because the turnover thing with the dribbling was a meme for about a couple months there. But I just think when it comes to coaching, do you think Mazzulla actually does anything when you watch them play late in games? Because he doesn't really call timeouts when things are going poorly. Does he design good plays out of timeouts? Not really. They no-showed Game 7 against Miami last year. Shouldn't have even been in Game 7 because Derek White had the miracle putback in Game 6, and they choked that game away too. I look at Boston, and late in games, they seem scared. And they have been for several years. It's why I don't trust them to make a deep run. Now, am I saying they're going to lose in the first round? No. They still might make the Eastern Conference Finals. But am I picking them to win with a coach I don't trust and a bunch of stars who tend to shrink in somewhat big moments? I don't. So that's why I'm a bit lower on Boston.
And I'm just glad you said that because I think it started with under Ime.
Right.
They really never got over the hump in the championship. I felt like I just don't. Jason Tatum reminds me of, he's passive. I say, well, he's got like GOAT level potential, right? But he's like a T-Mac, Paul George, Lamar Odom. These guys have high level talent, but they're passive aggressive. And I think that's what leads the team. They need a guy on Boston to really be a dog like that. And Ime's a great coach. You can see that in Houston, what's going on. That was like damn near traumatizing that summer for them, for that to happen to them. And they're supposed to take over, get past that hurdle and become a super team.
Right.
But you lost the coach that clearly, he knows how to coach these kids, man. I don't think Mazzulla is in that conversation with Ime. What you think, old boy?
Nowhere near. Ime is a great coach. And he looked like he's a leader of men. He's respected. And he looked like he's a tough guy. Not saying physically, but mentally.
Yeah.
He wants the best out of his players. He looked like he don't take no mess. So I think Boston lost a lot with that. I agree with what Scott says as far as like those guys can't be trusted. But I want to kind of try to stick to gambling, right? Because all of a sudden, Scott, I know you know today, everybody and their mama is gambling now. Everybody think they know everything about sports, including me. It's times I take bets and be like, I know they're gonna win. And so give us some of the mistakes that guys like us make when it comes to sports betting and sports gambling.
Yeah, so I already mentioned the bankroll management thing. A lot of people
Yes.
don't have that. They'll just pick a certain number and they'll just bet it. And they'll look back and go, I probably should have bet less on that game. Like, that's happened to everybody, happened to me in the past. Once again, all these mistakes that I'm about to mention, I've done because I was in 11th grade betting on sports. The point is, once you actually make these mistakes, make sure you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And that's how you kind of learn from them. But once again, bankroll management, I mentioned before. I'm not going to mention that again. When it comes to the other stuff, once again, I feel like details matter in some of these. A lot of people will blindly take a team on the premise of there's no way this team's going to lose. And sometimes it works. Go through the injury report. Do some basic research. Start somewhere, especially in the NBA. Because the Knicks, for example, suddenly, Mitchell Robinson's out for 3 months and Jalen Brunson might not play and Quickly might be injured. And if you bet that game early, you're going to feel like an idiot now because you could have waited and potentially heard some news about it closer to game time. But I feel like, once again, doing some even basic research helps. Don't just blindly bet on teams because of reputation. You just think, oh, this team is so much better than this team. This team is one of the worst teams in the league. I get all that. Just at least do some research with regard to who's playing in the games. Load management's been an issue in basketball in particular for several years. They're trying to fix it. But, of course, we're still going to see Miami bench their players half the time anyway. But I do think when you're looking at the injury report, it's a good place to start for even basic research. For NFL, I think the weather matters. You might be liking a pass-heavy team. It's pouring rain outside. For example, Houston Texans against the Jets yesterday. Weather kind of sucked. And suddenly Stroud didn't have Tank Dell available, and the offense looked atrocious. Now, Zach Wilson looked good, and the Jets ended up winning the game. But I feel like I think I saw this. The Texans were the most popular bet of Sunday yesterday, and they got absolutely killed. But I feel like weather matters because it can take some teams out of what they love to do. Doesn't apply to basketball, of course, but for other sports. Basic stuff, weather, injuries, some things that seem so obvious, but you'd be surprised by how often people just choose to not even bother looking at it. And I think you should. Basically, what I'm trying to say is information matters. Make sure you have the most amount of information possible before you finally put your hard-earned money on it. Like I said, investment. You want to learn about the company before you actually put money on it.
Oh, man, great points. Listen, the information you're giving, what's sad is we know these things, but we still don't take it into heed. Like, we still don't do it. And hearing what you're saying is so much knowledge. I want to ask a question. How big is sports? Is sports betting good for the world right now? Because it seems like it just took over by storm.
Viral.
Right. Like it seems like it's going to be nonstop. Your opinion, is it good for sports?
I think it's fine once again when it's done responsibly. When you start DMing players that don't hit your player props, that's a little bit overboard. But I feel like the issue people run into is just how quickly it all unfolded and how it just seems like it's kind of the Wild West of we'd want to be first to promote this instead of actually trying to figure out a responsible way of promoting gambling. Because now you're on any single game, any broadcast, they're telling you player props in mid-game. You're getting TNT broadcast, and they're telling you, oh, LeBron's at 4 points. He needs 25. He's at 4. And you're like, I'm trying to watch a basketball game. Like, you don't have to shove it in my face. If you want the gambling lines, you're going to know the gambling lines. But I feel like it's fine in general, but it definitely can be dangerous if you are not careful about how much time and effort and how much money you're willing to spend or invest in the overall process. And I feel like a lot of people treat it like it's the lottery. They treat it like it's a get-rich-quick scheme where they're constantly trying to put in $10 to win $1 million, and they're already planning their retirement. And I feel like that's definitely the bad way to go about it. So I feel like it's fine. Once again, there needs to be some details ironed out with, I'd say, limiting the amount of problem gamblers there are and trying to just increase knowledge on how dangerous gambling can be. I'm aware that it's not a perfect type of investment. I know that there are some flaws with it, but I think it's fine, once again, if you do it properly. And nobody's forcing anybody to bet. Just because it's illegal in your state doesn't mean you have to bet, and there's no fear of missing out. Like, if you care about sports and you want to make money on it, then sure, give it a try. If you don't, I'm not going to invest in the stock market if I don't know anything about the stock market. Like, I feel like it depends on, once again, how much you know and how much you want to learn. But I think it can be an issue based on how quickly everything got legalized. But to answer your question, it's kind of a cop-out answer. It's a bit of both. I think it's fine in principle, but the way that people treat it is extremely wrong. And the bad part is that since there are so many people that are trying to prey upon these new bettors who are trying to get rich as quickly as possible, they lose a lot of money. And that kind of hurts the sports betting credibility, because everyone starts thinking that it's a scam. I know I just said a lot there, but
no. That's the reason why I'm excited to have you here, man. Like, we need to hear that you're not bullshitting us. We need to hear people say, like, yo, listen, you guys are not taking your time.
Right.
They will take your money. Think about what you're doing to have this. We talk basketball all day, literally all day long. And you can hypnotize yourself into thinking that you know what the hell you're gonna do on a bet and lose your house. This is real. So with Scott, everything you said, I love it. Do not think you're talking too much. Please feed the beast. We do have a question here from PJ the Barber. Do you have an underdog line play for tonight?
Let me check underdog quickly to see, because those lines constantly move and the injury reports are a bit iffy. So to get back to PJ there, I'm gonna need like a couple minutes to find one, but I'll get you something.
Okay, no doubt. And you say that was Underdog the app or just an Underdog?
That was Underdog Fantasy. So yeah, it's like a platform. It actually sponsors some of the shows at SGPN. So
Scott, let me ask you a question. What's some of the best websites to get accurate information on injuries in players?
So most of the injury reports that I use, Twitter's of course going to be a great source. X, whatever you want to call it. Try to follow all the main reporters, any of those guys in general. But I use RotoWire. I think RotoWire is pretty solid. They usually gets posted at 3 a.m. every morning, which I know because I'm waiting for it. But they usually post the initial NBA lineups with injuries. They cover every sport. But I usually go there. They'll tell you it's questionable. They'll give you a projection. It's not always accurate because, once again, you get some last-minute scratches. Somebody wakes up and shoot around, decides, I don't want to play today, and they're not going to play. But I usually use RotoWire. I think it's pretty solid. It's pretty organized, and that's how I go about it with injuries. But you can usually rely on Twitter and Twitter and RotoWire, and that's usually good enough for me.
I've been using Fantasy Labs on Twitter. Is that's
fine too? Yeah.
Okay.
I follow them. All of those Twitters things. You set on notifications. They'll tell you when somebody's not playing.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And you mentioned earlier the weather into how it impacts the NFL game. One of my favorite bets, probably my best bet ever I made in my life, was when the New England Patriots played the Jets on a Thursday night. It was pouring rain, and I knew the Patriots didn't have any wide receivers, so I put like a bunch of prop bets on drop passes and the running game, and I made a nice little amount there. But I bet on wsex.com, which is now pinnacle.com. Can you explain what exactly? And pinnacle.com is an offshore account. Can you explain briefly what is an offshore account and what are the risks involved with using an offshore account?
Okay, so I used to use offshore accounts too. I was using 5 dimes back in the day before it got.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! Wow,
I was using 5 dimes way back. Yeah,
right.
I had to learn what MoneyGram was just to actually get money sent into the account. But anyway, that's a separate story. Point is, for the offshore, it means it's not based in America. Offshore literally means, imagine a shore on a beach somewhere. It's in the Caribbean. That's usually how it goes. So they have for example, Stake is the new one where you can bet with crypto. It's the thing that like Drake sponsors, and you see their ads all the time. That's an offshore book because it's not based in America, but you can bet it. But the point is, offshore books are books that are not based in America, but have legal gambling rules based on where they're located. So a decent amount of places like Costa Rica, for example, that's where 5dimes used to be located. That's where a lot of these books used to be located. So offshore just means location-wise. It is not in America. You can use it, but it's based on gambling regulations from other countries, usually the Caribbean. That's what that means.
Can you explain the risks, though, involved with that as well?
Well, the risks are you don't know who's paying you. That's one issue because once again, it's a random book or platform from a country that you've probably never been to, and you're hoping that they send money into your crypto, or you're trying to get paid through, I don't know, MoneyGram or even like a check or anything like that. So you could potentially get ghosted. Most books do pay, but you never know. And we've seen shady practices even from FanDuel and DraftKings, but every now and then a random bet might void. I'm sure you've seen that before. You win a bet, suddenly they'll say that there's a bad line posted, and they just cancel your bet. I don't know if you've had that happen to you. It's happened to me before.
I'm such a noob, as my son would say. I'm a noob that I haven't had that happen yet. I'm so glad that if somebody gets injured tonight, they'll cancel the bet for you, and you're good. Like they cancel bets now if there's an injured player on your ticket. That never happened before.
That's not a thing that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, on FanDuel they do it. They'll cancel it says like a lock, something pops up. But
that's a player. Okay, so that's for player props. That's not a common practice. That's because people on Twitter kept like demanding that FanDuel or certain books would refund them. That's not a normal practice. That's something that's relatively rare. If somebody gets injured, usually they just tell you to deal with it, and it is what it is. Right. But when it comes to the risks involved with offshore, though, it's just the lack of, I'd say trust, but I feel like it's mostly just the lack of certainty of where your money's coming from, who's running this damn operation. There's a lot of uncertainty involved. So the MoneyGram story was back in the day. I'm going to the local CVS using the red phone in the back, trying to dial up some random number, and I'm trying to like send money to, I don't even know, Costa Rica, Venezuela. I don't know where the hell the money was going. But I'm going to the counter, I'm saying the name, and I'm like, all right, here's $100. Then suddenly I'd get like a referral number, and that's how I would fund my account. So it was like shady. It looked that shady back in the day. That's why a lot of people with offshore stuff, it's cool because you can gamble from anywhere, even if your state doesn't have legal gambling. But on the other hand, let's say that this random book just ends up not honoring their bets, or they just don't pay you. What are you going to do?
Right.
Nothing. Right. Based in Costa Rica, what are you supposed to do?
You can't do nothing. Nobody
Correct.
can really.
You're screwed.
And to finish the topic with the offshore account, though, I got a lot of these content creators. They point to Pinnacle.com as like an offshore account as well. It used to be W6.com, but they're also saying that that's where a legit gambler will go to, and they create a market where it's like, I don't say more trustworthy odds, but that's a different market than you get from FanDuel and that the common casino odds. Is there any truth to that, where Pinnacle.com and offshore accounts may have that different odds that they make? Is it better? Is it just another set of amount of information?
From what I heard about Pinnacle, one, I heard that it's a pretty sharp book in general, but I think a lot of people like Pinnacle because I believe they post their lines first. So it's more of like a first come, first serve thing, where if you want to bet early, you're up at 2, 3 in the morning, you want to beat some lines that are going to be posted in America maybe a couple hours later. Pinnacle, from what I remember, is usually the book that posts their lines first. And you could argue that other sports books might base their lines off of where Pinnacle is. So I'm not saying that every offshore is a shady operation. I'm just saying that's the case with some of them, which is why it's a bit scary at times. But Pinnacle and some other books are trustworthy. I've used some from time to time. I've used Bet Online before, for example. I've used a couple of books here and there offshore. But it definitely has its perks. Not all of them are perfect, but Pinnacle and some offshore books do possess some value. Pinnacle in particular, I think people like because they are the first book, from what I remember, to post their lines. So they are early. So if you want some predictions, early indications on where other books might open their lines, Pinnacle's usually the place to go, from what I've heard.
And then that's up with you at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I don't know if I'm up at 3 in the morning or just I'm fully awake because I still wasn't trying to sleep before that. But yeah.
Now I have a question. I don't know if you can answer this. Some games, whatever the sport is, do you think players know about the lines and the spreads, and sometimes they don't cover them on purpose? Prime example, it was a game with what's the quarterback for the Chiefs?
Mahomes.
It was a play where I think they could have covered, and he didn't run
into, he split at the 1 yard line.
I think so, and he didn't run in the end zone. Do guys like you who are sports bettors, do y'all look at that and go, they did that on purpose, or the players have no knowledge?
Okay, so first things first, I'm on your show, so I'm going to answer the question. It's just going to happen. You don't have to worry about it. I'm going to answer your question. Do I think that the players know? I don't believe in the conspiracy stuff about players fixing games and trying to I don't believe that. Now, you could argue that there are some shady things that happen. I think it's a coincidence because sometimes when you bet on a player, a lot of people love it and it wins, nobody says anything. But suddenly when the popular play loses, everyone remembers the play that loses instead of the plays that win. So I think a lot of it's selective recall. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's a gambler's fallacy, but a lot of people they tend to remember the losses a lot more than the wins. That's kind of just how it goes. Maybe you feel the same way. But I feel like for the Mahomes thing, first of all, it was the right play because they ran the clock out. Game was over. Like, it was the right play. He shouldn't have fell down at the 1. I had the Chiefs in that game. I lost. At no point did I think that Mahomes knew the spread and was intentionally trying to blow it. No. Now, Twitter exploded after that and said Mahomes knew. He didn't know. I don't believe that. But I think, once again, a lot of people are into the conspiracy angle because they don't always want to take responsibility for their own losses. And they believe that it makes it a lot easier on their conscience if they can blame some external force on why they lost instead of just realizing, maybe I could have made a better read on a certain game, something like that. But I think some coaches know. I think coaches know. You hear that in college football all the time. It's a motivational tool that some teams use. Do you follow college football at all?
I don't, but it makes sense because how else are you going to tell what the public really feels about you?
Yeah, it's a good way to, everyone's against us. We're trying to win. I'm sure that that's been talked up before. I'm going to give you examples, though, of favorites that I think know. James Franklin, coach of Penn State. Oh, he definitely knows what the point spread is. He's running up-tempo offense, trying to score touchdowns up 30 in the final minutes of games. I think some coaches know. Players, maybe they're told here and there. It doesn't help that people on Instagram or Twitter are DMing the athletes telling them, I got you for 3 threes tonight, Kevin Herter. Don't let me down. Like, that's happened before. So some players find out because fans are DMing them, telling them you better score 20 points tonight. Like, I think they know. I don't believe in them intentionally trying to screw over people's bets or anything like that. I think it's just coincidence, and some people want to believe in the conspiracy. But once again, the coaching thing, I think some coaches know. The James Franklin thing's a good example. Dabo Sweeney's done it a couple of times. His team's going no huddle under a minute, up 40. That's not a coincidence. Like, they know. Like, I think they definitely know. But for the most part, I don't think so. Or if they do know, I don't think that's in the back of their mind when they're making the final plays in games.
Wow. You can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Fabian, can you hear him? I'm talking to you, man. It's a lot of knowledge, and I'm starting to understand. It's a lot of work, and what I'm getting from is, if you're not going to put in the work, you do not need to be sports betting.
What job is, though? What job do you actually have in any walk of life where you can do anything and you just decide, I'm going to half-ass it and make money? Usually doesn't work too well. It's not, once again, I treat it like it's a full-time job because, one, I've made money on it, so it's worked out well for me. But, of course, I'm also passionate about sports. And I do think that's a nice kind of marriage between something I'm passionate about and making money. But it is a lot of work, and I put the work in. So I know what it takes because I've done it. But once again, if you're going to do it half-assed, don't expect to make a lot of money because there are other people that you are competing with, for example, sports books, who do take it seriously because that's how they make money. And if you're not going to treat it with the respect it deserves, you're probably going to lose.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think what happens is people don't. That word half-ass is a very interesting word right now for me because people are probably making so many bets they don't think they're half-assing it. So they're going 1,000 miles an hour with 1,000 bets, but they're not going. They're going half-ass with the research. That's the real work, not just the betting and staying up and your eyes are bloodshot red. No, that's not the work. The work is learning as much about the game as possible. That's just with anything in life. So what would be your best advice for a beginner bettor? That's from Colin Flea Adams.
Yeah, so my best advice for a beginner bettor, first things first, it's going to sound simple. Before you even place a bet, find out how much you think you should be betting per wager. The last thing you want to do is start out betting too much money, you lose, and suddenly you potentially can't pay a mortgage or you can't pay a rent. Like, you make sure if you're beginning, don't bet more money than you can afford to lose. Sounds extremely simple. You'd be surprised how many people can't even do that. Like, you'd be really shocked how many people are just committing the most obvious mistakes imaginable, serious life-altering mistakes, and it happens all the time. It's why these casinos keep building bigger and bigger hotels. It's why you see a lot of these, because there's a lot of really bad bettors out there, and they don't learn anything from their mistakes. So my biggest piece of advice for you initially, figure out how much money you want to set aside to bet on sports, and then divide that up. Most people treat every bet, every unit, let's just say 2% of your overall bankroll. $100 is all you're willing to spend on sports betting. Put $2 on a bet. I'm not going to unit shame you. You can bet whatever you want to bet. I don't care if you're betting $1,000, $2, doesn't matter. Point is, it's always better to bet to risk too little than too much. Because once you risk too much, you got a lot of problems on your hands. So that's my main piece of advice for beginners. Figure out the amount of money that you want to set aside to start this venture. And then if you lose all that money, then you can always quit. Once again, it's better to lose $100 than $10,000. So there's no shame in quitting if you don't think you'll ever be profitable. But my main advice would be, once again, always bet what you can afford to lose. Don't bet money you don't have. If you have money and maybe Christmas around the corner and you want to buy some family some gifts, don't bet the damn Thanksgiving. Don't bet the Christmas games on TV. Like, priorities. That's my main thing. Keep in mind priorities.
And when you say unit, that for us, I think that's we translated for us on the block. That's a ticket. So a unit would be whether it's a parlay, that one ticket, whether it's that one bet on that one game. That's a unit.
Not necessarily. A unit is, on a straight bet, what your default wager would be for every straight bet. So if I want to take, for example, the Knicks tonight, random game, one game, I like it a lot, bet $100. That's usually like a default unit size. Now, for the rest of my gambling, until I bump it up or move it down, my default unit size is $100. So it's basically just a unit of measurement. So if you want to do a parlay, you can do a quarter of a unit, and you put $25 on a parlay, something less than what you would normally put on a single bet. So a unit just means how much you normally put on one bet. And then you can do more, less. Usually parlays are less because they're riskier. But it's a unit of measurement. That basically just means if I'm going to straight bet something, I'm going to bet on one game. How much do I usually put on this game? That's what a unit is.
Got you. Great information, man. Great information. Like I said, man, we have my brother Scott, man, from Queens. Big sports bettor, man. Been doing it a long time. A lot of knowledge, a lot of information. You know, I love to gamble. I love the sports, right? And it's weird for me because as much as I'm a blackjack fanatic. And as much as I love sports, I'm not a big sports bettor because I know the work it takes. And I'm a real gambler. And I like he said, I know what it is to try to get it all back, bet everything. It's a real disease. And it's like, if you're not going to put in the work, because he said something earlier, and if he could just explain a little bit. We only hear about when people win. We don't hear about when they lose. Is that true, Scott?
You mean like every single Twitter post about how some random guy in Ohio made $200,000 betting like
or even a lot of my friends, you know, they may tell you that one ticket that they lost, but it'd be the ticket where they put $10 on there and it was 30 teams and they lost by one team, but every other ticket they hit.
Right.
But it was always one pick away, so they think that they're going to have the next time they're going to get it. No, it's completely independent from itself. So I think once again, it's intentional. A lot of the places that publish this stuff on Twitter, is it a coincidence that it's like a betting publication, or DraftKings or FanDuel will post it on their own Twitter account? Look at this random guy who made $50,000, because they know if they post that, a bunch of other people are going to think to themselves, I can do it, and they'll make back that $50,000 in 5 minutes.
Wow. Well,
it sounds scary when you think about it, but there's a reason why a lot of these sports books on their social media are promoting these winnings. They're not happy that the person won $200,000, but they know if they promote it, then other people are going to immediately think, why can't that be me? And they're going to do the same exact thing, and they're going to make money in the grand scheme of things.
these casinos, they made their life on FOMO, and they've been around longer than damn all of us. And
It's
they
all
might
manipulation.
be right 1,000%. And that's life. That's life. Scott Reichel, please tell the audience where they can find you. Besides, I said SGPN, but please let them know where they can find you on the internets.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio, as you can see down here. Besides that, I'm on SGPN, Sports Game Podcast Network. Do the NBA show 3 times a week, NFL show 2 times a week. Do tennis as well, but during the off season, so I'm off for that for about a month. WNBA too, but that's also the off season. But yeah, on a lot of shows, the network, also doing free picks every night at Winners and Whiners on YouTube. But besides that, find me on Twitter. Have any questions? You want some overall sports thoughts, not just gambling, but overall rants on teams? I got you covered there. Follow me on Twitter.
We would love to have you back on to rant about some of these teams. How the Bulls. I want to piss off some of these Boston Celtics fans. I want to piss off my boy over here because I'm big on Orlando Magic and they hate my guts for it. They think I'm crazy.
Pick them to win the division during the offseason.
Hold on.
Yeah.
No. Hold on.
Talk to him, Scott.
No, I love it. But before you go, was that pick because of the money or because you think they're a good team?
It was a mix of both because I was looking at the odds, and I know Miami doesn't give a damn about the regular season. So they're usually a good team to not lay a big price with because they only care about the last, I can't even say the play-in game because they lost the first play-in game. So they usually care about the biggest games imaginable in the playoffs. But I like Orlando's roster. They're young. They're athletic. They're a very good defensive team. I think they're well coached. I think Mose was a good coach. But it was mostly trying to find value with a bit of a longer shot. I think Orlando was 7-1 to win the division during the offseason, give or take, meaning to bet $100 to win $700. But it was mostly not trusting Miami because Miami put all of their eggs in the Dame Lillard basket. They didn't get Lillard, and they really didn't do anything else during the offseason. Now, it turns out Hawkeye is a good player. Teams look good. But I'll point out that I thought Orlando would care more about the regular season. They're a young team that was very good in the second half of last year. And Miami's a team that tends to not really care about the regular season. So it was a mix. I thought the value was on Orlando, but it was also thinking Miami was too big of a favorite based on the history of them not exactly taking the regular season seriously.
Got you. Before you get out of here, please, I need you to, what do you think about the Lakers? Do they actually have a chance to win the championship?
I think they do. I don't know why they wouldn't. I feel like I'm not going to overreact to the in-season tournament. I'm not going to suddenly say they're a serious title contender because they won a random game in Vegas in the middle of December.
You're not going to grab your goggles and go celebrate with LeBron.
I had Halliburton under 29.5 points in that game, so I did my own celebrating from that. But still, I do think the Lakers are good enough to win the title. You can argue, though, that there are no dominant teams. A lot of people like Boston. I already said before I'm not in on them because I don't think Missoula's a good coach. But you're looking at the other teams. Denver supporting cast. Is it great? Not really. I know that Murray's been injured. He's been good. Jokic is Jokic. He's the best player in the world by a wide margin at this point. But do I like the bench? Not really. Do I trust Michael Porter Jr.? Not really. There's some questions to be made. I feel like there's some issues there because Michael Porter Jr. doesn't pass the ball to anybody. But still, I think the Lakers are good enough.
He chucks too much, Scott.
I mean, yeah, I'll put it this way. Porter Jr. has never seen a shot he doesn't like, and his favorite player might be Klay Thompson. Just going to put it that way. But I do think looking at...
hold on. He is a fake Klay Thompson.
I'm just going to throw it out there. Now, Porter Jr., of course, has been a good three-point shooter, but he will always look for a shot. That's all I'm going to say. Denver, of course, is still great. I'm not dismissing the defending champions. I think Denver will be in the Western Conference Finals. But the Lakers, if they look anywhere near as good defensively as they did against Indiana in a playoff series, they're dangerous. And yes, they got swept against Denver. I know they did. They probably have to trade D'Angelo Russell. Just throwing it out there because he basically was forced off the floor in that playoff series last year. I'm not a D'Lo guy. The trash talking with Bruce Brown was fun in the middle of the game, but you got to shoot better than 6 of 15 if you're going to trash talk, in my opinion. But D'Lo is a guy who I think is probably going to get traded. I think Caruso is a good fit for this team if they want to bring him back, for example. But I do think the Lakers have a certain gear defensively that a lot of teams don't have. Now, LeBron, is he the same guy that he used to be? No. Is he still top 5 in the league? Definitely top 10. Top
Right.
5, you can argue definitely top 10. And AD,
Right.
when healthy, we saw what he did against Indiana. He's really good. Keywords when healthy. That's always a problem when it comes to AD. Are the Lakers contenders? Yes. Would I pick them to win the NBA Finals right now? No, but I'm not going to dismiss them. That's just disrespectful. This team is definitely a top 3 team in the league, in my opinion.
Got you. Listen, man.
Well, how do you feel? You brought it up, so you're either very pro or anti-Laker. So where do you stand?
Hold on. You're getting warmer. He's very anti-LeBron.
Oh, he's anti-LeBron. Okay, all right.
Please don't get me started, man.
I heard Jordan didn't have any in-season tournament MVPs. If that,
Right.
that was a talking point that was brought around. It doesn't mean anything to me, the in-season tournament stuff.
Hey, Scott, listen. I said yesterday. Think about this. No player ever was able to do this. LeBron can win 2 championships in one season. Come on, man.
I'm trying to think if it would be 3 if he wins like an All-Star Game MVP or something. But yeah, that's fine too.
Lord have mercy. Oh my God,
Scott's going crazy.
Please do not speak that into existence. I never even thought of that. The All-Star Game MVP, the in-season title, and then the championship.
Nah, Scott's official.
I have to change my name, man. Wow. Thank you.
Someone asked though, why are you anti-LeBron? Is it because you're just pro-Jordan, or is there a reason why you don't like LeBron?
No, I'm not even pro-Jordan. I just I'm anti-LeBron because I'm anti-LeBron because if I'm not, nobody else would be. He gets too much props. He gets too much props.
Really?
And when he loses,
LeBron's like the most polarizing figure in the league. I think half the people love him and half the people hate him. Really?
Yeah. Well, the people we deal with and talk to, listen, he does no wrong. If he could, he Christianly did.
But
no, he's a lot, man.
No, tell him, Fabian.
No, I'm with you, Scott. I think he's the most polarizing basketball player maybe ever.
I think he is ever because Jordan played pre-Twitter, so I think he's definitely going to be like in the social media era. No, everything LeBron does is analyzed with a microscope.
Yes,
people are holding against LeBron that Bronny James lost his first college game.
They're taking it too far. Did you see the prices for those tickets?
Nah. Wow.
Did you see those prices, Scott?
I'm assuming that it's a ton.
Yo, they
was like 300, 400 maybe?
300, 400.
I made it up. I'm guessing.
I seen some prices that was 10, 15,000.
Damn.
For a Bronny James ticket against Long Beach State?
Yes, look it up for that USC game yesterday. Yes.
Shout out Dom Dropper. He was there in the building watching Bronny James for the first time.
Because you probably had to have a good hookup, a pass, or somebody. But if not, they said them tickets was ridiculous.
There's a lot that comes with that too. Just to watch his first game back from that kind of,
He came off the bench. He played like 15 minutes.
He played 11 minutes, I think, 3 in the first half.
Like people paying $50K or whatever to see Zion against North Carolina for his shoe to blow out in the first minute of the game.
Right.
That happened too. But I once again, LeBron, I feel like you are trying to be a LeBron hater because you think that other people aren't with you. You'll be surprised and maybe happy about it. There's a lot of people with you. A lot of people don't like LeBron. So
he knows, Scott. He has.
Just saying.
LeBron hater just called them earlier.
A lot of haters.
They were arm in arm going crazy, Scott. They go crazy.
I just think he gets too much props. When I hear he's the best you've ever seen, it's just too much women. Like I said, if they could, he'd be able to Christian babies as well, man. It's too much. It's too much for me, Scott. I'm sorry.
So does that mean you also hate Taco Tuesdays, or is that fine?
Oh, I hate that. I hate he make the guys ride the bikes with the helmets on. Yes, I hate it all, man.
I didn't mean the social media. I meant actual tacos on Tuesday because it reminds you of LeBron. Like how far does the hatred go?
All right, this is embarrassing. Please don't tell no one. Yes, I hate Taco Tuesdays because of LeBron James.
Okay,
yes,
just making sure. All right,
leave it at that, please. You will not have me confessing up here. That's it.
Scott Reichel, we got to get into AllBall with Uncle Ike coming up next. If you do have time to jump on Instagram, it's AllBall TV on there as well. We're gonna have Uncle Ike joining us soon. I can't thank you enough, Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, you made this episode, you don't understand, beyond amazing. Like we broke down the educational side, and then you just a cool New York dude, man. So if you have the time to come back on with us, please, we need to school everybody because you are an amazing dude. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for reading my DM and just joining us and putting everybody on and educating them on what it is to really be a gambler, a professional, and really an investor at this point.
Yeah, yes, thanks for having me.
Yes, I just want to say thank you. We'd love to speak to you again, no matter when it is. We up here, good brothers. Anytime you need us for anything, and we can physically do it, hey, man, we a DM away, brother. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
1000%.
having me. If you have any gambling questions or if you just want to chat about basketball, hit me up.
Got you. Thank you.
You know where to find them at. That's the first episode of the Gambling Spot in the books. Fabian Perspective, All Ball in the building. Till next time. All Ball with Uncle Lights coming up next.
We out.